I checked the time on the microwave clock exactly 3 minutes ago, and it was 2:14 in the morning, which means it is now 2:17, the kind of deep, granular hour where the silence in this house feels heavy enough to choke you, like it's a physical weight pressing against the drywall and the windows. And I haven't moved from this spot on the floor of the guest bedroom for what feels like a lifetime, because if I move, the floorboards might groan, or the air pressure might shift, and I can't risk drawing attention to myself. Not tonight. Not with what is happening across the street at house number 4. I have the binoculars pressed so hard against my eyes that I can feel the rubber rings digging into my skin, leaving those red circles that I'll have to explain away in the morning if anyone sees me. But I can't put them down. I physically cannot lower my arms because Sarah Miller is standing in her foyer, and she has been standing there for 45 minutes without moving a single muscle below her neck, just frozen there like a mannequin that someone forgot to put back in the box. And the lights in their hallway are blazing, absolutely blazing, casting this harsh, clinical yellow glow that spills out onto the lawn and cuts through the darkness of the street like a spotlight on a stage where the play has gone horribly wrong. Mark and Sarah, the architect and the real estate agent, the power couple, the ones who always bring the imported brie to the block parties and laugh a little too loudly at Judge Thorne's jokes, they have that massive mirror in the entryway, the one with a gilded frame that looks like it belongs in a museum in Vienna rather than a suburban hallway in Willow Lane. And Sarah is standing directly in front of it, maybe 6 inches away from the glass, staring into her own eyes with an intensity that makes my stomach turn over. But she isn't just looking, she is practicing. And I know that sounds insane. I know if I said that out loud to the police, they would write me off as the crazy woman in House 8 who needs to switch her medication. But I am watching her, and I am telling you, she is practicing her smile. It starts at the corners of her mouth, this slow, mechanical twitching, like invisible fishhooks are pulling the skin upward, and she holds it there, holds that rictus grin for 10, maybe 20 seconds, checking the angle, checking the amount of teeth she's showing, and then she lets her face go slack, completely dead, void of any emotion whatsoever, just a blank slate of pale skin and exhaustion. And then she does it again. She pulls the lips back, exposes the gum line, widens the eyes just a fraction so it looks like genuine delight, like she's just seen an old friend or heard the best news of her life. But her eyes, the eyes in the reflection, they remain completely hollow. 2 dark tunnels going nowhere, and she freezes again, locking the muscles in place, testing the durability of the expression. I can see the tension in her neck, the way the tendons stand out like wire cables beneath that thin silk robe she's wearing, the blue one with the floral pattern that matches the curtains in their living room. Because everything in that house has to match. Everything has to be coordinated and curated by Mark's obsession with aesthetic unity. And I wonder if he's awake. I wonder if Mark is somewhere in the shadows of the upper landing, looking down at her, critiquing the performance. Or if she's doing this for herself, trying to remember who she is supposed to be when the sun comes up, trying to construct the mask of the happy wife, so that when she walks out to get the mail tomorrow morning, she doesn't accidentally scream. The stillness of the street outside is terrifying. It's not peaceful. It's expectant, like the asphalt and the manicured lawns are holding their breath, waiting for something to snap. And the only movement I can see anywhere else is the slight swaying of the oak tree in front of Martha Higgins' house, house 2. And I know Martha is awake. The crow is always awake, sitting in her nest of surveillance equipment, probably logging the exact time Sarah's light went on, probably noting the duration of this trance. But even Martha wouldn't understand this. This isn't suspicious activity in the criminal sense. This is a malfunction of the human spirit. This is a woman taking herself apart and putting herself back together, because the version of herself that existed yesterday wasn't convincing enough. Sarah's hand comes up now, slowly, moving through the air as if she's underwater, and she touches her cheek, pressing her fingertips into the flesh as if checking to see if it's real, or maybe she's checking for bruises, though I don't see any, not from this distance.
but the way she prods at her own skin is so detached, like she's inspecting a piece of fruit at the market for soft spots. And then she drops the hand back to her side, snapping it down with a rigidity that makes me flinch, and she resets the smile, wider this time, too wide. It stretches the skin until it looks painful, exposing too many teeth, looking predatory and terrified all at once. The kind of smile you see on prey animals right before the predator closes its jaws. A desperate appeasement to the universe.
I remember seeing her 3 days ago at the recycling bins. She was sorting the glass from the plastics because the HOA has strict rules about separation, and God forbid you put a green bottle in the blue bin. And she looked up at me, and for a split second, just a microsecond, her face looked like it was sliding off her skull. She looked so tired, so deeply, ancestrally tired. And she started to say something. She opened her mouth, and a sound came out that wasn't a word, just a small, high-pitched whimper. And then Mark came out of the garage, holding an architectural tube, and the smile, the exact smile she is practicing right now, snapped onto her face like a bear trap closing. And she said, "Good morning, Claire," in this bright, chirpy voice that sounded like it had been synthesized by a computer. And I just nodded and walked away. Because what do you say to that? What do you say to a woman who is terrified of her own husband, or maybe terrified of the house itself? She hasn't blinked. I swear to you, she hasn't blinked in at least 4 minutes. Her eyes are just fixed on the mirror. And I'm starting to wonder if she can see something in the glass that I can't. Maybe she's not looking at her reflection, but at something standing behind her in the reflection. Something deep in the hallway where the light doesn't reach. Because the Miller house is full of those long, narrow corridors that Mark designed to create sightlines and flow, but they just look like shooting galleries to me, tunnels where there's nowhere to hide. And the darkness at the end of that hallway behind her is absolute, a black void that seems to be inching closer to her bare heels. But she doesn't turn around. She doesn't acknowledge the dark. She just keeps refining the curvature of her lips. A car drove by about 20 minutes ago, a slow sedan with its headlights dimmed, maybe Julian Vane coming back late from whatever crypto meetings he holds in the middle of the night, or maybe just a lost delivery driver. And when the headlights swept across the front of her house, washing over the glass door, she didn't even flinch. She didn't react to the sudden illumination. She just kept staring, kept holding the pose. And that's when I realized she might be in a state of shock, or a trance. Or maybe this is a ritual. Maybe this is how she pays rent for living in a house that costs 3 times what Mark actually earns. She pays with her sanity. She pays by erasing herself every night and drawing a new face on in the morning. My legs are cramping. The pins and needles are shooting up my calves, but I'm afraid to shift my weight because the vent in this room carries sound down to the basement, and sometimes I think the plumbing in these houses is connected. Sometimes I think if I speak into the sink drain in my bathroom, Silas Blackwood in House 13 can hear me. So I stay frozen, a mirror of her frozen state. 2 women trapped in different boxes, separated by a strip of asphalt, but connected by this bizarre vigil. And now she's leaning forward, leaning so close to the mirror that her nose must be touching the glass, and her breath must be fogging it up, obscuring the image. But she doesn't pull back. She's whispering something now. I can see her lips moving, rapid-fire movements, not the slow practice of the smile anymore, but frantic, desperate speech. I wish I could read lips. I wish I knew what she was saying to her reflection. Is she pleading? Is she rehearsing a speech? Is she reciting a grocery list to keep her mind from shattering? Or is she talking to the person in the mirror as if it's a separate entity, asking it for permission to step out of the glass and take over? And the way her jaw is working, the spasmodic jerking of her chin, it looks like she's arguing, looks like a heated debate is happening in that silent, brightly lit foyer. But there is no one else there, unless you count the shadows, unless you count the house itself, which always feels like it's listening, the way the timber settles and the pipes groan. And then, just as suddenly as the whispering started, it stops. She snaps her mouth shut, the teeth clicking together, and she pulls back from the mirror, standing up to her full height, smoothing the silk of her robe over her hips with trembling hands. And she takes a deep breath. I can see her chest rise and fall, a massive intake of air, as if she's been holding her breath for the last hour. And she lifts her chin, angling her face toward the light fixture above her, letting the harsh yellow glare wash out the lines of fatigue, washing out the fear, bleaching her features until she looks like a porcelain doll, perfect and empty and ready for display. She turns her head slightly to the left, offering her profile to the mirror, checking the jawline, ensuring there is no slackness, no sign of aging or weakness, because in Willow Lane, weakness is the only true sin. Imperfection is the only crime that gets you evicted, not by the bank, but by the social pressure that crushes your lungs until you just drift away. And she knows it. Sarah knows it better than anyone because she sells these houses. She sells the dream. She sells the lie that if you have the right granite countertops and the right open concept floor plan, you will never be sad again. And now she is trapped in the showroom of her own making. The wind is picking up outside, rattling the pane of glass in front of me, a low moaning sound that vibrates through the frame. And for a second, the leaves of the magnolia tree in her front yard block my view, a chaotic flutter of dark shapes. And when the wind dies down and the leaves settle, she has moved. She is no longer directly in front of the mirror. She has taken one step back, just one step, but the angle has changed, and now I can see past her. I can see a little further into the hallway behind her, into the living room that adjoins the foyer, and there is something on the floor there, a shape that doesn't fit with the pristine geometry of the rest of the house, a dark, crumpled mound near the foot of the designer sofa. It looks like a coat, maybe, or a pile of laundry, but Sarah never leaves laundry on the floor. Sarah is meticulous. Sarah organizes her spice rack alphabetically. So why is there a heap of dark fabric on the living room rug? And why is she standing with her back to it, resolutely refusing to turn around, refusing to acknowledge the disorder behind her, focusing entirely on the perfection of her face in the mirror? And the more I look at the shape, the less it looks like laundry, and the more it looks like a person curled into a fetal position, or maybe just a heavy blanket thrown down in haste. But the shadows are too deep to be sure, and the distance is too great, and my eyes are watering from the strain of not blinking. She lifts her hands to her hair now, smoothing back a stray strand of blonde, tucking it behind her ear with a delicate, trembling finger. And then she smiles again, but this time it's different. This time it's not practice. This time it's final. It's the finished product, a dazzling, terrifyingly bright smile that bares her teeth and crinkles the corners of her eyes. The smile of the perfect wife, the smile that says, "Everything is fine. The dinner was lovely. Thank you for coming." And she holds it, locks it in, and then she reaches out with her right hand toward the wall switch. She doesn't look at the switch. She knows exactly where it is by muscle memory, her eyes never leaving her own reflection, holding that gaze as if she's daring herself to break, daring the reflection to scream. And her finger hovers over the toggle, trembling just slightly, vibrating like a moth wing. And I get this sudden, overwhelming urge to scream at her, to bang on my window and shout, "Don't turn off the light, Sarah. Don't turn off the light, because if you do, you'll be in the dark with whatever is behind you." But I can't make a sound. I am a ghost in my own house, a spectator to the slow motion car crash of her life. Her finger touches the switch, and the foyer goes black, instantly, plunging the house into darkness. But because my eyes were adjusted to the glare, the after-image of her smile burns on my retina, a glowing green ghost of a grin floating in the blackness. But then, as my vision clears and the darkness settles, I see something else, because there is still a faint light coming from the street lamp on the corner, a weak, sickly orange glow that filters through her transom window. And in that dim, underwater light, I can see that Sarah hasn't moved. She is still standing there in the dark.
But she isn't alone anymore. The door to the coat closet, the one directly to the right of the mirror, the one that was closed the entire time she was practicing, the one that was flush with the wall and seamless, is now standing open. Just a crack, maybe 3 inches, a vertical slice of absolute blackness, darker than the hallway, darker than the night. And from my angle, looking down from the second floor of House 8, I can see a hand, a pale, masculine hand, resting on the edge of the closet door, fingers curled around the wood, waiting, just waiting in the silence. And Sarah is standing there with her back to it, breathing in the dark. And she takes a step forward, not toward the stairs, not toward the safety of the bedroom, but she turns, slowly, deliberately, and walks toward the closet. She's walking toward the hand, and she isn't running, she isn't screaming, she is walking with that perfect practiced posture, her head held high, gliding across the floorboards toward the thing that has been watching her practice for the last hour. And as she reaches the door, as she reaches out to grasp the handle and pull it wider, the street lamp outside flickers, buzzes once, and dies, plunging the entire street into total, suffocating blackness. And now I am blind. I am sitting here in the dark, clutching my binoculars and listening to the silence. And the only thing I can hear is the sound of my own heart hammering against my ribs, and the soft, distinct click of a front door opening somewhere across the street.